near 21,000, of course. You know, being a leader, you're all, you know, ahead of the game. Now, a guy called Lawrence Easton works with me for about, I suppose about 9 years. He's been making the gear. What's great about it, you see, most people don't realise that you know, you can get all the 𝐆𝐧𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐲 stuff and all the stuff in the shop, but you've got to, when you're working on stage, you've got to have quick changes, like, you know, you've got to be able to take things off and stuff like that. Yeah, a bit of rock and roll now, look at that, you see.
We've got the 90s version of the footwear as well.
And again, you're quite right, because we were looking at that, hang on, that was quick, you want to go again? You remember those, I mean, there's a few people who might be Paul Gadd's age in here, you know, but in the 70s we used to have those platform shoes and they were really heavy. I mean, watch this, I'm going to stand up now. These are made of really lightweight material and you don't know what you could be stepping in these days, so it's worth getting up high. Look at that, now look at that. See? And that's it, because they're as light as a feather. I suggest everybody go, you don't need it. Look at your legs, they go on forever. Hey. Okay, play with yourselves, right?
The Christmas Gang Show, another massive hit again, as it is year after year after year. Why is it so popular?
It's probably because it's the gang show. When we wrote rock and roll, when we wrote Leader of the Gang years ago, I decided instead of calling people fans, it was just, it meant the gang. And so it was the gang show, and later on it always became the gang show. I mean, this year it's called Who's in a Gang. And I think it's very much a people show, and it's audience participation. Everybody who goes there, and I'm sure there are a few people maybe in the audience who've been to one of our gigs, you know, somewhere. Yeah, you have?
I have.
Oh, yeah, why not? And it's just great fun, and they go there to work hard. They, you know, and in fact, anybody who's there this year, bring a change of t-shirt or something like that. I'm frightened they're going to catch the, no, I know, they catch the death of cold when they're out there, soaking wet, they work real hard. So I'd like to think that we're there really because of public demand as opposed to sort of corporation decree, you know, over the years. It's just it's a people show.
Going back to the early days, how did the name Gary Glitter come about? Because you were Paul Gadd and then Paul...
Well, I started recording when I was 14 years of age for Decca Records in about 1959 actually, late 59. I'm not as young as I look. I've been in the makeup department. I came in yesterday actually. It seems like it anyway. And,
Paul Gadd?
Paul Gadd, yeah, I digress. So Paul Gadd is my real name, and the first time I ever heard the word glam was Decca Records decided that they should change your name to Paul Raven, and they changed it. For 12 years I was Paul Raven, and I worked really well and really hard with that. And then I never really quite had that big hit record, even though we had Tower of Strength, Walk On Boy. They would have been hits by today's standards, but not in those days. Like, you know, it went to about number 18 or something like that. I went away and I worked in Germany for about 5 or 6 years because there was no work here. It was all sort of northern groups, and there was Beatles, and if you didn't speak like that with a northern accent, you could not get any work. It was true. And then I worked for Ready Steady Go a little bit, but that's another story, and we're there forever talking about that. And I came back and I met a guy at Ready Steady Go called Mike Leander. He was the co-writer of Leader of the Gang and On Back, all the I Love You, Love Me, Love.
Did he dream up the name?
No, he didn't. We had to change the name because the industry sort of said, you know, or rather Bell Records at the time said, look, you've been, you know, around for so long, let's change the name. We had these list of names, and somebody, well, it was a girlfriend actually, one of my girlfriends that moved to Paris sent me this Diamante star. Do you remember in 72 everybody was wearing those little Diamante stars? But you remember how in the 60s Billy Fury, Marty Wilde, you know, you wouldn't, but I can see there are a few people who might just, and they were great rock singers in the 60s, and they had these names. So we said, let's make up some names for the 70s. And so when somebody sent me this Diamante star, I said, somebody sent me a Gary Glitter star. He said, that's it. And I said, oh, no way. I'm not going through my career with that name. And
didn't do you any harm.
It's been fantastic.
The 70s was the real kind of boom time for you, apart from now, of course.
Wonderful.
How
time.
wild was it?
Well, when I came to the BBC Centre today, Martin Jenkins, who's now my producer, working with me and co-writer, said to me, what was it like here in the 70s, you know? And I said, well, apart from about 2 months, if we look in the Guinness Book of Records properly, I lived here. This was like, I used to call it the Four Seasons, actually, because I was here the whole time, and I moved into Top of the Pops. And it was wonderful, because you used to have your next door neighbour was Elton John, down the road a bit was, you know, Mark Bolan, oh, wonderful Mark Bolan and T-Rex, Slade. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
I mean, these are, you know, some of the audience I know don't know these names, but they were such characters. And it was a magical time. It was an absolute magical moment. And the greatest thing on earth for a singer is to get a hit record. And it took me 12 years before I'd be recording, and I was going to give up sometime, and then I was nearly going to give up when we wrote Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2. And it saved my life, you know. It was absolutely wonderful to have a hit record. So, 70s was amazing, and I'm now back into the platforms because they're the right weight, and I'm getting skinnier.
The right weight
I'm
too.
working, yeah.
What was the lowest point for you?
Well, part of the 80s, I guess I was probably, I don't know, the record stopped selling a little bit, you know, quietly. The times were changing, disco was coming, I wanted to do this, blah, blah, blah. You know, we'd already had, I think, nearly 38 hit records, top, you know, 11 top 10 records, which is huge. I mean, and it was a worldwide thing. I went to Australia twice in 1 weekend, then come back and do Top of the Pops. You know, my body was kicking, and you do some terrible things. And now I say to any television company or any record company, anything like that, I say, right, no, I'm not doing it. I need a rest, you know. But then it was all new to me, and I wanted to do everything. And I suppose I started drinking a bit. I started taking, you know, things to keep you awake, and you had to, because you got off the plane, and it was a different time zone and everything. I don't do any of that anymore. I mean, I'll go a couple of days and have a wander around and meet the people, and then slowly get into it. But then it was all, you know, you had to. It was like the big merry-go-round. And I guess you know, I started burning the candle at both ends, you know.
It hasn't done you any harm, though, because now you look great.
Thank you, I feel great.
Good luck with the tour.
It's great.
Newcastle, watch out.
Newcastle on the 7th, and Glasgow, which is your hometown.
I'll be there.
I can't wait. And then we're in Wembley, and then we finish up in Manchester.